Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Okrit D&D Voyager's Guide to Ravean uh, kind of god profiles. Today, we're going to cover a homebrew god called the Prince of Shadow. The Prince of Shadow is a lawful evil deity of death and loss. He is often depicted as a shadow of a man with dripping tar-like feathered wings. His goal is simply the consumption and torment of mortal souls. Existing as a god of death, he is the antithesis of everything the Raven Queen stands for, opposing her at every opportunity. The Prince of Shadow is an otherwise reclusive god that typically does not favor any particular mortal over another. The Prince of Shadow does actually favor one of the most devious and evil mortal souls. Murderers and torturers are the favored mortals of this god, and even still, not all and not entirely. The followers of the Prince of Shadow know that they too must die one day, and some even take steps towards avoiding that fate entirely. Few have the power to attempt to escape their fate, so closely managed by their god. In time, the mortals would run the risk of torment from their god, claiming their soul after death. This means that the most intelligent of the Prince of Shadow's followers work to perform the ancient and lost process of becoming a lich, whereas the more beguiling ones might endeavor to make a pact with their otherworldly entity to afford them a long life. The followers of the Prince of Shadow are careful to guide their lives by attracting as little attention from their god as possible. The more attention you receive from the Prince of Shadow, the more likely it is for the god to come to claim your soul earlier than expected. The souls claimed by the Prince of Shadow are tortured for all of eternity by the champions of the god himself. That makes this god a little bit more interesting to delve into. So let's jump into that all. The Prince of Shadow, being this kind of Grim Reaper-esque figure, is less of a good Grim Reaper, but more of a bad Grim Reaper. So people fear gods and goddesses that of death, like the Raven Queen, on the basis of that they don't want to die. And that is a wholly valuable sentiment in and of itself. But she is a good Grim Reaper, right? She is the guide and protector of vulnerable mortal souls as they pass on into their desired afterlife. The Prince of Shadow, on the other hand, is the terrifying and evil and dark Grim Reaper that is there to take your soul and put it through an afterlife of eternal torment. And he favors those that would send souls to him early. Therefore, murderers and torturers that exact the punishment that he feels is necessary and relishes in for the sake of just enjoying this torment in and of itself, even before death. So a torturer and a murderer are kind of not respected or favored by the god, or given any particular favor in and of themselves, but appreciated by the god in the sense that they do his work in life, right? They kill and send souls to him and torture those souls even while they are alive. So while when those murderers and torturers die, they aren't afforded a place of worship or in general unless they prove to be a champion of this Prince of Shadow. They will be subjected to the same torment should he catch on to them and be able to reap their soul. uh, there's a chance that if you do get chosen as the current champion for the Prince of Shadow, that you will just be in this world of eternal torment in the afterlife as not a tormented soul but the tormentor of souls, sparing you this lifelong and eternal suffering versus being the exactor of it. Now, no one really knows within the world of Ravion what it looks like within the afterlife as a champion of the Prince of Shadow. There's a chance that that soul is too punished in a way that is almost kind of Hell Priest from Hellraiser. Uh, but kind of a ultimate pleasure and ultimate pain, might as well stab you with needles and rip you apart with hooks. And then also, hey, while you do this, you become the torturer. Like, the way that I immediately pictured this god's followers working is when he's done with you, if you are his champion, you end up becoming some sort of a twisted facsimile of your former self, in much the same way that creatures like Pinhead and the other creatures that work with him within the Hellraiser series tend to operate and look like. Is that tends to be the way that he would have them be, is they are this tortured being, this tortured soul that has become this great tormentor and executioner of souls for their god on his behalf. Now, part of the weird thing for this god is he doesn't necessarily have a lot of followers. His followers are followers in the sense that they're like, we do appreciate and respect him, and we will, in a sense, worship him, but we also don't want to attract his attention. So they don't want to do anything that would, bring them up on his radar. So they don't offer a sacrifice, versus so much as they would maybe keep a holy symbol on their person or in their home in an effort to subtly worship without the god actually catching on. It's kind of a, how do you send a prayer to a god that's listening for prayers as a means of finding a target? He's a risk. And so worshippers of him will worship him for either the purposes of becoming the eventual champion. And those are the people that tread that razor's edge line of, how do I very delicately gain the favor of the god without him killing me, right? Versus the people that worship him as a, how about not kill me, please? They worship him as a means of avoiding the fate that he so often embodies. Then again, the more popular worship for people like that would be the Raven Queen. Please do not let this come for me. Take care of my soul, kind of a thing. Do not let the Prince of Shadow take over my death. That means that some of the people that worship the Prince of Shadow that don't necessarily get along with the Raven Queen herself are actually going to be necromancers and various different people that want to support undeath as a means of avoiding this life, that this eternal afterlife that the Prince of Shadow has for them. The Raven Queen does not take kindly to undeath. She's the embodiment of, hey, there's a natural order to things, and undeath is a perversion. The Prince of Shadow doesn't care so much about undeath versus death. He just wants you die, because eventually you will die. Once you do, he's there, and he will take your soul and put it through utter torment. Now, as a lich, eventually, being undead, you'll live a much longer life. You will. It just is the case. There is a chance, however, that you'll go crazy, and that in a sense is, even if you were to never actually die and become a true immortal, you will be a husk of your former self, likely babbling in madness. And that is a just enough torture in life or unlife that the Prince of Shadow is like, yeah, no, that's fine. This highly intelligent being is now relegated to this former husk of themselves. That is enough of a karmic justice and torture for their otherwise intelligent mind, that he's fine with you going into this form of undeath for lichdom, or going into this other forms of undeath, because he will eventually die in other less powerful forms of undeath, like becoming a skeleton or a zombie. Eventually someone will take a skeleton or a zombie out, right? And that's when you'll get a hold of your soul, and then the torture will be that much worse. So he's fine with you going into undeath, as long as eventually he'll be able to just wait it out. Keep in mind, these gods are immortal. They've been around from the beginning of time and will be around until the end of time, presumably. So they have plenty of time to wait. So it doesn't really bother the Prince of Shadow that there's someone that is eluding him for now, because they're only eluding him in the short term. He will eventually catch up. Death does. That's the point. So, I appreciate everyone kind of watching through this video. Thank you for watching. If you liked it, then leave a like. Let me know kind of what videos you like on this channel. That way I can get you more of what you enjoy. Otherwise, definitely leave a comment on what you think might be an interesting pact, different warlocks or other pacts similar to the way that a dark deceiver might make a pact for a long life. Other beings might end up making a deal with the Prince of Shadow for a long life to avoid him. What do you think would be the cost other than this extreme and much worse torment when the life does end? What other cost might be the case for the Prince of Shadow for someone that wants to make a deal uh, for this longer life, prolonged life? Otherwise, thank you again for watching. And remember, it doesn't take much to make a difference out there in the world, so be the difference that you want to see. I will see you all in the next video. Bye.